an unconstitutional hoax.
Aloha and welcome to Trust and Verify. One more Sunday down in the books. We have a spectacular Game of Thrones-esque show planned for you. At least that's what Boogie promised me. So if it fails, it's on him. But before we get there, I got to introduce my friend, my partner, my co-host, Boogie Bumper. Boogie, what's going on, brother?
Not a lot, James. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Good to be with you, of course, by the way. Thanks, everyone, for joining us in the chat. Thanks for sharing out. If you do, just a quick reminder, if you don't want to watch tonight, if we run a little overtime and you want to watch Game of Thrones, then you can always download the podcast. Just look for TAV show on iTunes or Podbean. I did promise a Game of Thrones-esque show, James, but what that means is specifically you're going to be having sex with a family member and I am going to be... And I am going to be killing a dwarf live on show tonight. So that's how we roll. That's how we roll here on Trust and Verify. James, I wanted to get to something straight away, and I wanted to highlight something from one of our favourite sources, Salon, and we use Salon quite a bit. We aren't getting any checks from them though, unfortunately. No. You would think we're driving traffic to their site. You'd think that they would care. Especially when they put stuff up like this reasoning, James. Look at this. The news media helped Trump win in 2016. Here's what needs to change for 2020. And I just thought, wow, because the news media, by and large, you know, with a ratio of about, what was that that research that came out from one of the universities, James, a liberal college? It was about 89% negative on CNN, 85% negative on MSNBC, similar numbers on ABC. Now, we do 100% negative on Salon. You know, we very rarely give them a pat on the back. Let's call it 99% to be fair, to be conservative in our estimates. So if 89% negative coverage of Donald Trump actually helped him win 2016, do you think that 99% negative coverage of Salon would help drive traffic to their site? I can't see any problem with that logic.
There you go.
Can't at all. Despite all of his bellowing about fake news, James, Trump benefited greatly from the news coverage of the last election. As much as President Trump likes to misrepresent the mainstream media as the opposition party, fake news, and even the enemy of the people, James, the truth is that he benefited greatly from the news media coverage and reporting during the 2016 election. As my co-author and I explain in, now, are you sitting? If you're standing, sit down. If you're sitting, lie down. And if you're driving, please pull over, because the co-author of this book and the author of this article, they have written a piece, and I think that the title of this piece is going to, you know, shock you, and you will be amazed at the scope and breadth of the investigation going on here. As my co-author and I explain in, this is the title of the book, quote, "The Twitter Presidency, Donald J. Trump and the Politics of White Rage." Politics of White Rage. Quote, I can't wait to read a quote from The Politics of White Rage, the book. "The Trump campaign utilized television in several non-traditional ways that appear to have been more effective than ad TV buys. This included hosting large, raucous campaign rallies that were aired in whole or in part on cable news, phoning into cable news programs, and tweeting outrageous remarks and demeaning comments on Twitter that were widely covered in the news. These three strategies greatly amplified Trump's media presence and hateful rhetoric, earning by some estimates as much as $5 billion in unpaid advertising." So the authors of Salon don't leave us, you know, in the lurch. They provide some, would you say, workable solutions to combating this Trump-esque media rampage, James. Would you like to know what it is?
Sure.
Would you like to know what the solution is?
Absolutely.
So we can get rid of Trump 2020, like the good comrades that we are. Eliminate unpaid advertising. Okay. Quote. Okay, so what does that mean, though? What does that mean? You'll be pleased to know. The news media must stop covering Trump's campaign rallies altogether. Yeah. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, they must not show Donald Trump's rallies, James. Never mind that he's actually the president, he must be deplatformed. Listen to the reasoning. These events function exclusively as white nationalist propaganda for Trump's base. So the reasoning to taking him off the television screens, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, is it's white nationalist propaganda. Now, we've spoken before, haven't we, about Facebook want to rip, they've banned white nationalism off Facebook. And a couple of people told me that I'm crazy when I said to them, it's all about what they define as white nationalism. That's the problem here. Because even if you're a comrade, even if you're a lefty, but if you're more on the reasonable side instead of the let's throw them all into the gulag side of the left, then you're going to have problems too, because the SPLC advises Facebook on what is white nationalism. The SPLC defines Donald Trump as a white nationalist. Here we have Salon defining Donald Trump's campaign rallies for the presidential election in 2020 as a white nationalist propaganda exercise. How about this one, James? Number 2. Do not cover Trump's personal attacks on Twitter. Okay, so we're just not going to cover his Twitter account either. So what else?
I'm liking the strategy so far.
Hey?
I'm loving the strategy so far. I'm loving it. I really am. Yeah. I can't wait.
Yeah. Deplatform the president, James. Call lies, lies, lies. Throughout much of the 2016 campaign, the news media was reluctant to call Trump a liar. What the fuck are they talking about? The news media was reluctant to call Trump a liar. They still call him a liar every day. Every single day. The Washington Post actually has a running fact check on Donald Trump. They're at like 6,000 lies or something, apparently, they think.
In fact, they just called him a liar in this very article.
Exactly. Directly confront charges of fake news. How the hell are they going to do that? How the hell haven't they already been doing that? We're not fake news. We're real news. We would never lie to you. By the way, the Mueller report, the president's going to be indicted. The president is going to be indicted. I have heard from secure sources from within the White House that Robert Mueller is getting ready to write an indictment of Donald Trump today. It's all happening. Trump's going to prison. We're not fake news. Tonight at 6:00. Well, you know what? That whole Mueller thing, maybe we should. I played a clip on Thursday, James, on my show, Chris Saliza. He was like, how about this for a thought experiment? What if the Mueller report wasn't that important? What if it was all about Stormy Daniels all along? Interview experts, not journalists and political pundits. Interview experts, what, like James Clapper? Would that be one of them? Would Clapper be one of them? Comey, he was an expert in the FBI. John Brennan, political expert in intelligence, James. Quote, if the mainstream media news is unable to follow these simple guidelines, they will all but ensure the re-election of Donald Trump to a second term. The fourth estate exists to protect our democracy from the slide into autocracy. No, it doesn't. That's not why the media exists, and you know it. And it's high time they start performing that function. I love it because it puts CNN in a really tough spot. If they don't cover Donald Trump 95% of the day, they'll go broke and out of business. If they do cover Donald Trump, they're going to re-elect him. Oh, it's tough. It's a tough spot to be in, James. What do you do? Push or fold or all in? What do you do?
This is awesome, and I'm going to get to that in 1 second. There's a great comment in the chat, and the reason it's great is because it reminds me of the current meme that's all over Twitter right now, and it says, Mueller time is over. It's time to pay the bar tab. That's right. These guys are freaking ridiculous. I actually agree in the Salon article. I want them to follow through with everything they just said because it will do nothing but help us. It will help us, we the people out here in social media, because what's going to happen? They can't help themselves. They have to call Donald Trump a liar 14 times a day. So what are they going to do? Not cover his campaign rallies would be awesome, because that would take, everybody would go, wait, why the fuck are they not covering a rally? And they would say, well, we don't even know it exists, but they wouldn't be able to stop themselves from responding to something he said. Donald Trump today, earlier in South Dakota, said that the immigrants should all stay on the other side of the wall he's building. They would criticize him, which would cause him to get the advertising to say, oh, there was a rally today, which would then cause people to go search for that rally. And there will be people out there like us in the social media that will be covering it live on their channels all over the place. And if you say, well, YouTube and Twitter, see, this is part of their plan. This is why they want to deplatform, quote unquote, the president and white nationalism and all of us racially charged people out here on social media. Guess what? There's other platforms out there that aren't YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. People will drive to Parler, DLive, DTube, any other tube that's not YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. It'll drive traffic our direction. It will help us immensely. So, I love it. I think that their plan is genius, and I think they should go for it.
Exactly. I couldn't agree with James more, and I love Salon. Thank you so much, Salon, for that suggestion. Stop showing Donald Trump rallies in their entirety. Stop covering his Twitter account. And then what you do is actually, do you see the beautiful way that this guy, and people can, here's the thing. If you believe that Donald Trump is outsmarting them with the way he rhetorically paints people into corners, or if you think Donald Trump is a moron and is doing it by accident, guess what? You both agree that it's happening. You see? So even Democrats who think he's dumb and, just doing this by potluck, it's still happening. So at least we can agree on the fact that it's happening. He is rhetorically painting these people into corners whereby the only option they have is to lose. So if they cover him, they lose. If they don't cover him, everything he says about the media bias comes true. Therefore, they lose. It's absolutely genius. Speaking of rhetorical wizardry, James, this was getting a bit of play over the weekend. Do you want to check this out?
House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders. Sarah, thank you for joining us again. So where does this idea stand right now?
This idea.
Look, this is an option on the table. I mean, we've talked about a number of different things over the last 2 years that we'd love to see happen. Certainly, this wouldn't be our first choice because ideally, we wouldn't be dealing with the massive influx of illegal immigrants coming across the.
Of course, Sarah Sanders is talking about the plan, the quote-unquote plan, to place illegal immigrants in sanctuary cities.
Border. The crisis that we have, both from a national security and humanitarian standpoint, is if Democrats would step up and help the president fix the laws, this all could go away. We wouldn't be having this discussion, and that would be the best thing for the country, and that would certainly be the best way to solve this crisis.
Now, I kind of want to pull back the kimono a little bit, James, because the last few episodes we've had a lot of laughs, and it's great, and I love having laughs, and we're going to have more laughs tonight. But let's open the kimono a little bit for people and expose what's going on here. Sarah Sanders does not have to go on ABC. She can exist perfectly well in her role without going onto networks like ABC, CNN, and etc. So why would Sarah Sanders go on ABC specifically for this floated policy idea? There's a reason, right? Mm-hmm. It's to expose the audience of ABC who have been pro-sanctuary cities. And it gets the news media who has been calling anything that's against sanctuary cities racist, right? They know that they are oppositional for the sake of it. They will oppose anything that Donald Trump does. And this is going to get the ABCs and the CNNs in front of their own audience, decrying the entire concept of sanctuary cities by proxy. By proxy. They're not going to come out and say sanctuary cities are bad, but they're going to say the idea of putting illegal immigrants into sanctuary cities is bad. Now, the people who watch these programs believe that that's what sanctuary cities are for. So when the news, it's going to be like RoboCop's head exploding when he gets a paradox. You know what I mean? Like, what the hell? Wait, sanctuary cities are good, but putting illegal and sanctuary cities are for illegal immigrants. That's good. But if we put illegal immigrants in sanctuary cities, that's bad. Does not compute. Kaboom.
Did you see?
If Democrats continue to be unwilling to do that.
Did you see Cher's tweet that exact thing just happened? Like literally, go look at.
Loaded up, ready to go.
All right.
Do you want it? There it is.
Yeah, look at that. I mean, the exact thing you just described is happening.
I understand helping struggling immigrants, but my city isn't taking care of its own. What about the 50,000 US citizens, James, who live on the streets? People who live below the poverty line and hungry, all in caps. She's shouting this. She feels it. The emotion, James. She can't help. This patriotism is bursting out of her. If my state can't take care of its own, how can it take care of more? The best part about this is the comments. Excuse me, why are you promoting alt-right talking points? You are a Nazi.
Oh, shit. Cher's a Nazi.
Hello, looks like you just woke up. Amazing how people within sanctuary cities and state don't want those. They advocate for more to come. Isn't it fantastic? Welcome to sanity, says somebody else. This is an example of the genius of Donald Trump. Look at that. Isn't it fantastic? That's the best comment at the top there. Excuse me, why are you promoting alt-right talking points? You are a Nazi. Let's go back to Sarah Sanders here.
Then we're going to look at all of our options, and we don't want to put all of the burden on one or two border communities. And Democrats have stated time and time again, they support open borders, they support sanctuary cities. So let's spread out some of that burden and let's put it in some of those other locations if that's what they want to see happen and are refusing to actually help fix the problem.
So what is Stephanopoulos going to say to that? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad you asked.
But as you know, when this story broke on Thursday, White House officials said flatly that the idea had been rejected. We know the president...
Don't engage the idea. Let's go back to unnamed sources in the White House saying that there's no way the idea could happen. Hey, guess what? We just fact-checked the president again. He's lying. We got another lie. It's not going to happen. Calm down. Everybody calm down. If you're watching this, calm down. Take another pill. It's okay. Relax. By the way, this program was brought to you by the pharmaceutical companies. Would you like to purchase some antidepressants? Here you go. You need some antidepressants, James. What the fuck's going on here? What the fuck's going on here? Would you like to spread the love to the sanctuary cities that no longer should exist because this is illegal and wrong, and Donald Trump shouldn't do it?
Oh, I can't wait till he does it. I hope he drops them off all by the busload right in front of the governor's mansion. On like literally drop them off at the gates to Beverly Hills. Like this will be freaking amazing. And just as another further fact check on George Stephanopoulos, the president retweeted, we covered it yesterday on Ladies of Liberty, that he tweeted out, like, fact check, we just told you it's true. This is absolutely 100% within our purview, and we might be doing this. So just heads up, the president's telling you, yeah, fuck you, George. Here come the fucking all these people that you guys said you wanted. This is on you. And he also demanded in his tweet the highest standard of care, especially from California. So these people are going crazy, and that's exactly it. Yep. In fact, of course, knowing that it's Boogie that set that up, the first story is supplemented by the second story in saying that Donald Trump is a rhetorical genius, and no matter which way they play this, they lose. No matter how they try to cover it, they lose. They're going to lose, and they're going to keep losing because the rhetorical genius of Donald Trump is amazing.
Yeah, and here's the thing. The Democrats aren't stupid, okay? We need to get past this. They might be incredibly deceitful. They might be incredibly malicious. But, you know, a lot of Republicans might be too, granted, okay? But here's the thing. The Democrats know that there is too many people in districts which are in sanctuary cities, which are like borderline Democrat, where if this actually came to pass, too many people would end up voting Republican, right? Mm-hmm. So the sanctuary cities thing is not as, you know, across the board approved. There are a lot of Democrats that don't like the ideas of sanctuary cities. This is something that comes from the top of the Democrat Party, which appeases the hard left within their party. And it comes from, you know, local districts and local cities and mayors that have far too much power. The Democrats know that this policy of sanctuary cities stinks, like on a national level. Locally, it's okay, but on a national level, it stinks. So if you end up with like Donald Trump shipping out illegal immigrants to sanctuary cities and the people in those cities coming out and saying, this is horrible, what the hell is going on? We didn't want this. We never want sanctuary cities. If that becomes a rolling conversation into 2020, Donald Trump wins. Donald Trump wins.
Yeah,
and the beautiful part is, again, they're attacking him like, oh, he's attacking his political foes. Like, look at this article I've got for you here from The Guardian, James. Look at the way they're trying to frame this. They don't know what to do. Trump fixed on sanctuary city idea amid opposition and doubts over legality. Consternation over move meant to exact revenge on Democrats sees House committee chairs dismiss Trump's claim. But look at the language here. Donald Trump appears determined to send migrants arrested at the southern border to sanctuary cities around the US, because now all of a sudden they're using arrested instead of kidnapped, instead of families torn apart, right? See, the language changes like this on a minute-to-minute level, depending on what the president does. A scheme meant to exact revenge on his Democrat foes. But why would it be exacting revenge on his Democrat foes when they are in favor of the illegal immigration in the first place? So do you see how it does not compute? Yep. Democrat heads are exploding right now. Like, what do you mean he's exacting revenge? I thought you wanted... Are you saying that illegal immigrants are bad? Yeah. Are you saying it's bad to have illegal immigrants in your city? Why? Because revenge is something that's, something bad that happens to you. Because if illegal immigration is good and positive and a net positive for the country, how could it possibly be revenge by putting them in your city that you want? You're a sanctuary city.
That's right.
Democrat heads are popping off shoulders all over the country.
That's right. And there's another advantage to doing it as well, is that if he buses all the illegal immigrants into the sanctuary cities, exactly what do the Democrats gain by busing in the illegal immigrants into America? Exactly, precisely nothing. Because the whole point of them wanting the illegal aliens in the country is votes. If all of the votes are going into the Democrat areas, it doesn't affect the vote. Just think about that. This is how they're playing the game. This is how they're trying to strategize and win and buck Donald Trump on these kinds of things. This is what's going on. That's why they're so confused, is because their own rhetoric is coming back to bite them in the ass, and they don't know how to respond to it.
Exactly, 100%. We've talked about this before. People need to get out of the idea of thinking that millions of illegal votes are what's needed to change an election. No. Democrat operatives know, political operatives know. You don't need millions of people. You can do it with 1,000. You can do it with less than 1,000. You can do it with a few hundred people. If you get a few hundred people going from booth to booth to booth in a district, and if the district has less than a margin of like 1% and only, 20,000 people turn out to vote, you only need to flip like 500 votes to get that district going the other way. So you don't need millions of people doing it. If you can replicate that 20 or 30 times in close districts around the country, guess what? You win an election.
That's right.
So, it's never millions and millions of people.
Look at the last election cycle. How many elections were decided by less than 1,000 votes? We covered it a lot on all of our different shows and platforms. We have the Campaign Corner girls that are directly associated with us that literally vetted every single race in every single district in every single part of the country. And you can look time after time after time. These elections and these primaries were decided by I think the average was actually under 5,000 votes. I mean, that's insane if you really think about that. All the close battlegrounds were 1,000 votes, 500 votes. I mean, look at how many took weeks to do recount after recount after recount just to make sure that the vote totals were correct. I mean, this tells you how close it is to flipping one district from red to blue.
Yeah, and you know what? In 2016, it bit the Democrats on the ass because Donald Trump is president, arguably for a factor of about 60,000 total votes in 3 states in the blue wall. Without those 60,000 votes, he's not in the White House. Hillary Clinton is. So it works both ways here. But this is why I love when you talk about, the power of one. And it sounds like lofty, airy-fairy idea. It really isn't. If every one person can just convince one person to get out there and vote, that's right. It changes. It can change. You can nullify all of these tactics, but these tactics do exist. I don't know what it's like in America, but I know down here, we actually have to get people, in the conservative side of politics, stay up all night at the election place and guard the booths because we're expecting people to come down and fuck with it, tear down posters, put their own posters up over the top. Just votes go missing. You can't, you know what I mean? So people actually have to volunteer to watch the other side and make sure that they don't fuck around in certain districts. It's insane. speaking of fucking around, James, border crisis is Trump's manufactured chaos that he's created. Okay, so he created a manufactured crisis? Wait. So if he's created it, is it still fake? I'm not sure. Maybe this guy can explain for us.
Chairman Thompson, thank you for joining us.
Chairman
Thompson. I want to get to immigration, but let's begin where we just left off there with Sarah Sanders. She says Democrats should be condemning the remarks of Congresswoman Ilhan Omar.
Oh, we'll get to Ilhan Omar in a minute.
Well, I saw the speech she gave.
Move on to this proposal, perhaps, that the president is thinking about to move migrants to sanctuary cities. Do you see any way to do that legally?
No, I don't. More importantly...
Wait. You don't see how it could possibly be legal to move illegal immigrants. Where do you want to start? Where does the legality actually kick in? Does it kick in once they're over the border, or does it kick in when they're entering the country illegally? Illegally, James. Illegal immigrant. Do you think it's legal to move illegal immigrants to certain cities? Well, no, I don't think it is. Oh, so what you're saying is illegal immigrants are just free to roam around wherever they choose then, right?
This is, again, his manufactured chaos that he's created over the last 2 years on the border.
What?
This remain in Mexico.
The manufactured chaos he has created over the last 2 years on the border. The manufactured crisis that is real but simultaneously not real, James.
Yep. I don't know how.
Why do we bother trying to argue logic here? Why do we try? Why do we bother?
The cognitive dissonance you can watch happen in these people's heads is amazing. You can literally, it's exactly, again, what great segue from the previous story, where you watch how their heads literally explode with the duality of their thoughts. They have to create this delusion in order to fill in this gap because they believe two things that are actually opposed to each other. So they have to somehow tie them together with a delusion. And that's what the problem is. And that's why they suddenly fail with words, why they suddenly fail with concepts, why they suddenly fail on the law. Because the law is black and white. This is the problem. There is no such thing as they can't be here illegally, and then you say it's not legal to move the illegals to your city if you're saying it's legal for them to come across the border, or start from the whole premise that there's no crisis on the border, nothing's happening. So wait, if they're not here, doesn't matter where we ship them because they're imaginary. If they don't exist, if there's no crisis, who gives a shit where the buses go because the buses are empty? You see, that's the duality here, that they just can't put the two things together because they don't go together. There's illegals. There are 100,000 of them were arrested in 1 month. 100,000. That's 1.2 million illegal immigrants this year. I'm sorry, illegal aliens this year coming into this country. Just do the math. Do the math when they tell you there's only 11 million of them here. There's going to be over 1 million this year. How many came in last year? 500,000? How many came in the year before that? 500,000? Keep going backwards. So every 2 years, you're adding 1 million people to the number. Go back to when they got the 11 million number. The 11 million number is from, I think, 1986. I think that's where the number's from. So if you take 11 million and then you add half of the years between 86 and now, I mean, you're looking at like the number being 44 million, like the president said.
Exactly. I just want to address a comment in the chat, James. Colleen said, if we just focus on how stupid the Dems are, then the system is winning. But, with respect, Colleen, we did just, talk about that the Dems aren't stupid, that they are doing this on purpose in order to fracture people and in order to create certain paradigms of thought. And with respect, I don't know how many shows we've got down now. Nobody covers the Democrat side of the aisle like we do. And, of a certain group of people who aren't raging liberals on this app on Periscope, nobody gives the Democrats the amount of fair play that I do. I'm always talking about moderate Democrats, and I don't know how many times I've said the real fight isn't between left and right. It's not me, the voter, versus you, the voter. It's us, the voters, versus them, the politicians.
That's right.
I mean, I must have said that on this show 15 times. So, with respect, I think it's a little unfair to lob in once, listen to about 2 minutes of audio, and then start making proclamations. But if you stick around, we can move past this. But I do take your point on board. Sticking with that, James, the manufactured crisis, New Mexico City asks for donations as the number of migrant grows. Why would they be doing that? It's all manufactured crisis. It's not really happening. What are they? They must be grifters, James. They must be some of these grifters that we've heard so much about.
Yep.
The New Mexico city of Las Cruces, is that how you would say it?
Las Cruces. It's Las Cruces.
Cruces.
Yeah.
Cruces is asking for food and hygiene product donations as shelters have filled to capacity with an influx of migrants. Remember, this is CNN, known right-wing conspiracy website. Border Patrol agents dropped the migrants off in the city on Friday and Saturday, the city said in a statement. The Gospel Rescue Mission and Community of Hope reached capacity by Friday, the city said, prompting the temporary closure of the Las Cruces Recreation Center to house overflow crowds. On Saturday, according to CNN affiliate KFOX, 83 more migrants were transported to the city, with 61 going to the Community of Hope campus and 22 going to the center. More are expected to arrive. Particularly needed are personal hygiene products, including sanitary napkins, shampoo, conditioner, lotion, chapstick, or similar types of lip balm, clothing, towels, blankets, and canned food and bottled water. Also sought is foam padding to be used as bedding and stuffed toys for children. I just want to go back one more time to Scher, known right-wing alt-Nazi bigot. I understand helping struggling immigrants, but my city, Los Angeles, isn't taking care of its own. What about the 50,000 citizens who live on the streets? People who live below poverty line and hungry. If my state can't take care of its own, how can it take care of more? By taking donations off people. That's how you do it, sure. Yep. Remember, James, all of this is nonsense anyway, because it's a manufactured crisis. It's not really happening. It's all a concoction of the right-wing racists and Donald Trump. So what are we worried about?
That's right. I'd like to bring your attention to the fact that we have some more Periscope royalty in our chat again. Christian Lamar has joined us tonight. And Christian Lamar had a great comment that people need to really understand that we're really talking about here behind the scenes. And that is, Dems have a real shot at getting all of those illegal aliens on true voter rolls. We've documented this. Christian has documented this. People all over the internet have documented this. This is the fight for our country. Anyone who doesn't understand that isn't paying attention to the actual news, the real details behind the scenes, that this is the actual news. They are trying everything they can to get them on the rolls. They want to take over by that little tiny margin we've been talking about. We've seen the voter fraud tallies. We know what's coming out. We know what their plan is. And we're trying everything we can to stop it, because this is the fight for our country right here.
Yeah, and it's not, you know what, it's not just a fight for America, James. It's a fight for Western countries across the board. And you know what, like, this is the thing. The issue for me has never been the people who want to get to other countries. The issue for me has always been the illogical processing of people that want to, you know, flood the population of the nation beyond capacity. And people will say, well, there's plenty of room and stuff, but there really isn't when you break down the numbers. You can't grow a country by 20, 30, 40% population in 3 decades. Where are the roads? Where are the hospitals? Where are the houses? Where's all of the stuff that you need? And the problem is, you're increasing, GDP might be increasing because there's more consumers, but GDP isn't a fair and accurate measure of the individual wealth of people. Because what happens is people who own like lobbying firms and, you know, people who build houses, for example, and blocks of flats, they're making more money. There's more people. The price of housing goes up until, of course, there's a bubble like we're experiencing down here in Australia right now. My city, for example, one of the most expensive cities in the world to live, housing has dropped 10% in 1 year, the value of housing. So think of all the people who have just arrived in the country and bought a brand new home, and now they owe 10% more than what they own. So, you know, these things have flow-on effects. People stop spending money. People start tightening their belts. The cost of money goes up. All of these things are in the mix. It's always annoyed me where it's like, well, you're just racist. And, you know, I think to myself, well, these people vote. That's the scary part. That's the problem for me. How do we unlock that, right?
This is the part where GDP actually plays directly into this. And this is the part where people are they don't understand or disassociate the two things, but they're actually related. Why is the business lobby and the Chamber of Commerce supportive of illegal immigration? And I'm going to tell you why. It's because GDP the number of available jobs in our country right now, the unemployment rate, we have over 7 million jobs, but only 6 million unemployed. There's a million gap just between those numbers. And of the 6 million now today, they don't want to fucking work or they'd already be employed since we have 7 million vacant jobs. So a lot of people say, well, they're not trained. Let me tell you what, Manpower, places like, what's the name of that place? It's a temporary agencies will get you into all of the entry-level jobs. Yeah. They'll get you in. Yep. And most of the new jobs are entry-level. It doesn't require a high school diploma even to do most of the jobs available. Okay. And the people at large corporations that need skilled workers, they can take their skilled labor, move them up the chain if they could hire more entry-level people. So this is why, and if you look at our graduation rates, the number of people graduating out of high school this next year, it won't fill the job demand. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to increase the immigration to fill the job demand. This is how this whole thing works. This is why it's a circle. This is why 95% of big business donations went to Hillary Clinton. They're telling you they're against you, the people. Why are wages continuing to rise? Wages are continuing to rise because they can't keep their people if they pay them less. Because people like me, you in the audience, if the guy next door or across the street will pay you 10 grand more a year for the same job, fuck you, I'm out of here. I'm going to the other job for 10 grand more a year. So that's why wages will continue to rise, because companies have to fill their positions. They will have to do it. So at some point that balances out. Well, it doesn't balance out if you continue to bring in migrants. If you continue to bring in outside labor, that number won't ever balance out. See, it's a game. This is why Donald Trump understands how to balance that margin. He needs wages to rise and outpace what? Outpace entitlement spending. He told you, the president himself told you what the plan was to fix everything. To fix everything. He said, we're going to grow our way out of this. And what is he doing with the Fed right now? See, this is why these things are all connected. Every single piece. It's like a big, long tightrope. You just have to pull it tight. Herman Cain is going to the Fed. Herman Cain is the inventor of the penny plan. Remember, this is how you curb spending on one side. So he gets it. He understands what's going on. By doing that, by putting all of his people on the Fed, what has the president been talking about? Quantitative easing, quantitative tightening. He told you that if the Fed would not have fucked our economy by quantitative tightening, it would have been $3 trillion more dollars onto our GDP. By them doing quantitative tightening, they slowed down the amount of GDP growth. That GDP growth would have paid what? The deficits, the debt. See, this is how debt gets serviced by dollars. So, trust me, this shit is all connected. Every single bit of it. You have to understand economics to understand the border issue. It's literally connected. People that don't understand that, you're lost. You're in the weeds. You're outside of what's going on. The president is sending the signal right now that over the next fiscal cycle, what he's going to do is create more quantitative easing to back out those tightening measures that they took, continue along our spurious growth, to continue to grow forward so that we have the amount of tax dollars in the coffers to pay down debt, get rid of deficits, and also to outpace entitlement spending, which will then force Congress into a position where they would have to raise welfare and benefits, which the president will not sign. Therefore, those lazy motherfuckers sitting at home collecting welfare checks will go out and get a fucking job. And instead of those 7 million vacant jobs and 6 million people sitting at home eating welfare, it's going to be 3 million people at home eating welfare, and the other 3 million are going to go get a fucking job.
Well done. Quality rant, ladies and gentlemen. Hit the hearts, give a tip of your hat to James R., the known alt-right Nazi, giving a quality rant there on economics. I love it when people do economics with passion. And you know what, just to add a little bit on top of that, in response to the comment before about, if we just talk about how stupid Dems are, something again that we've said on this show very often, that the right and the left, the establishment right and the establishment left, have long supported mass immigration for their own reasons for a long time. If you're on the establishment left, it's for cultural reasons and social reasons in order to own the ballot box. If you're on the establishment right, it's because you want more consumers and more cheap wages in order to suppress wages, so there's less so there's more competition for work. Therefore, you don't have to pay people as much. And, you know, to be fair, I don't want to upset the ladies in the audience, but this was the main reason why big business actually backed the liberation of women into the workforce in the 1960s and the 1970s. It had nothing to do with, you know, how you feel and wanting you to be a part of the workforce. What they essentially did was double the amount of available workers so they could stop the prices going up. The price of labor going up. This is why in the 1950s, one person could earn a wage and afford to pay off a house, have 3 or 4 kids and a car, and why today it takes both parents working out of the house. The child goes into childcare, doesn't have somebody at home. Both parents have to work, or one parent has to work 2 or 3 jobs. They can barely afford to have 1 or 2 children. They have to rent a car or catch public transport. And of course, all of the flow-on effects from that just create more red meat for the socialists to begin with. Speaking of socialism, James, I want to throw this one up for you, something that we've spoken about often. Bernie Sanders accuses liberal think tank of smearing progressive candidates. What? What? Bernie, what are you talking about? What about the Nazis? What about the bigots? Remember the bigots hated you? Senator Bernie Sanders, in a rare and forceful rebuke by a presidential candidate of an influential party ally, has accused a liberal think tank of undermining Democrats' chances of taking back the White House in 2020 by, quote, using its resources to smear him and other candidates pushing progressive policies. You're not saying that most of these smear tactics and attacks, James, are coming from other Democrats, are you? We haven't been saying that on this show for months, have we? No, of course not. You see, we're just morons. James and I are both just simple blue-collar chaps. We are simple blue-collar chaps. But for some reason, this shit just presents to us as obvious. Maybe it's because we've worked with a lot of slimy individuals, slimy, creeps. Maybe we know shit when we see it in a person. So it just presents itself really easily to us. I'm not sure. Mr. Sanders' criticism of the Center for American Progress, James, delivered on Saturday in a letter obtained by the New York Times, reflects a simmering ideological battle within the Democratic Party. Again, it's not like we haven't been talking about the civil war on the Democrat side of the aisle for the last 6 months, is it? I don't even know where this is coming from. This is news to me. Thank you, New York Times, for letting us know what we didn't know. Thank you for shedding some light on this important fracture on the left. That the think tank, which has close ties to Mrs. Clinton, James, and the Democratic Party establishment, yes, the New York Times is actually writing Democrat Party establishment, is beholden to corporate donors and has worked to quash a leftward shift in the party led by Mr. Sanders. Mrs. Clinton and the Democrat Party establishment, James, is beholden to corporate donors. No, you do not need to adjust your monitor. This is the New York Times. This is the New York Times saying this. This counterproductive negative campaigning needs to stop, Mr. Sanders wrote to the boards of the Center for American Progress and its sister group, the Center for American Progress Action Fund. Quote, the Democratic primary must be a campaign of ideas, not of bad faith smears. Please help play a constructive role in the effort to defeat Donald Trump. It's too late for that, Mr. Sanders. And with respect, James, to be brutally honest to Mr. Sanders, isn't he the guy who bent over and took it up the rear violently when he was robbed of the nomination last time against Hillary Clinton? Now all of a sudden he grows a pair? I'm sorry, not buying it. Not buying it.
I think he begged for more. I think he actually, when he bent over, he said, fucking do it again, please, because I need another fucking house. This is the Democrat socialist with 3 fucking houses, beachfront property, drives a $400,000 Maserati, and he thinks that we need to redistribute some wealth. How about we start with all of your shit, Bernie? I think it's hilarious. By the way, I want to say aloha to the people over on the YouTube chat. By the way, if you have a problem advertising seeing the chat on Periscope, you can jump over to our YouTube channel where the bot rebroadcasts all of the Periscope chat over there, so you will not miss a thing. So, yes, join us over there anytime you want. And I want to say aloha to Thesaurus. I think it's, Thesaurus. I can't even fucking speak today. Aloha, because you've been around a long time over there on YouTube, and I never say your name. I'm saying it tonight. Aloha.
Absolutely. I want to move on. I'm going to continue tracking the Democrat Party, James. The dark horse, we've spoken about him before. I'm calling him Pete Buttigieg because he's so desperate to be called Buttigieg. Buttigieg. No, sorry, it's Buttigieg. He'll always be Buttigieg to me. Now, Pete Buttigieg stole Beto O'Rourke's mojo. James, they have a new darling. The O'Rourke boosters in the corporate press have a new darling. Beto O'Rourke was supposed to be the hero. So who's this other guy making all the headlines? And in a minute, I'm going to show you why this guy is particularly effective in his messaging. I watched a rally earlier today, this morning, my time, which I actually got banned from, believe it or not, from commenting. Like some of the most milquetoast comments you've ever read in your life. I didn't say anything offensive, but I was out of there for putting out truth. Pete Buttigieg, or Buttigieg, the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, and usurper of O'Rourke's role as Democrat media darling, has a few things in common with the man he has displaced. They're both relatively young, relatively good-looking, totally white guys from the parts of America that the Democrats could stand to win over. They're progressive to a point, but they're not ideologues, and they love the same book, sort of. Let me show you a little bit here. This was from Buttigieg's rally this morning. Now, this isn't Buttigieg speaking, but what I want to highlight here is why this campaign should not be instantly dismissed as irrelevant, no chance of winning. I want people to take notice here of the clever framing of issues and the way that Buttigieg's candidacy is being presented by those around him. This is another mayor speaking on his behalf, James. Wait, listen to some of the language here. I know you'll pick it up, and I know a lot of people in the audience will pick it up. And if you ever have any experience in like speech writing or anything, you'll know exactly what's going on here. So check this out.
My name is Nan Whaley, and I'm the mayor of Dayton, Ohio. I am so excited to be here today to talk about my amazing friend, Pete Buttigieg.
She can't even say it.
I heard about Pete was back
Buttigieg.
in 2010. I actually grew up in Indiana, and my mom called me one day to tell me about this amazing young man who was running for state treasurer, but didn't have a prayer because no one could pronounce his last name. Turns out she was right that time.
See, straight away. See, now people have been saying, oh, his name, no chance, his name. One of the things that you do when you run a campaign, James, is you do a lot of focus groups and polling and questionnaires of people. The reason that they do this in the first stage is to discover what your weaknesses are. And when you discover what your weaknesses are, your object then as a campaign team is to turn them into strengths. Okay? So they've actually made a theme. Like all of the speakers mentioned like the weirdness of his name. They've made a theme out of it. At one point during this rally, somebody came out and said, let's learn Pete's name. And they had the whole crowd chanting, Buttigieg, 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 right? Mm-hmm. So, just repeating. What's another thing that this guy has? He's a mayor, okay? Now, traditionally in a presidential campaign, that would be lack of experience. But how can you spin that to your advantage? He knows local issues. He speaks with local people. That was another theme that ran along in this. He's young, James. What else? How can you turn that to your advantage? He understands young people, and he's working for the future because he's worried about what the world is going to be like in his lifetime. He's not a 70-year-old who's going to be dead in 10 years, right?
Right.
But now I think people are finally catching on. Now I've gotten to know Pete and Chasten through mutual friends and through our work with the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And I am so excited that the rest of America is getting to know him too. Pete and I are both mayors of heartland cities that have faced big challenges over the last few decades. The past looms large in places like Dayton and South Bend, where much of our job as mayor involves shepherding our communities through a difficult transition. Cities like ours were long engines of opportunity for workers and families. Our cities built the backbone of the American middle class through good-paying jobs that required little more than a solid workout ethic and a strong body.
Where was one of the grounds that Donald Trump made up massively in 2016, James? Was it with middle-class blue-collar voters in states like Indiana, for example? Right?
And this is the battleground. This is what I just want to say this again. I'm serious when I say this. We were the first on any media. I don't care if it was social media, mainstream media, any media, to cover Pete Buttigieg. And it was because Boogie Bumper found him. We saw the article coming through from Salon, one of the starters, one of the people that start this trend to go upwards. We knew he was dangerous then because we saw exactly what Boogie just highlighted once again. How many votes did we win Indiana by? How many votes did we win Michigan by? How many votes did we win Wisconsin? Think about this. We are in the battleground states of the middle class, blue collar workers, and it's just like Pennsylvania, and it's just like those states that we flipped that they said we couldn't flip, that we won. And they were margins very, very small, very tight margins in those states. Pete Buttigieg is the guy that's focused on those states. Remember, the ultimate candidate doesn't matter. What matters is the collective. This is how the Democrats run politics. They put Elizabeth Pocahontas Warren to go get those old Northeast votes. They put Bernie Sanders to go get the socialist vote, and they get Pete Buttigieg to go get the blue-collar vote. And then when they get to their final candidate that comes out of the woodwork from nowhere, like Barack Insane Obama, then all those people go, he's really going to provide. Look, I have a direct line to him. Look, I promise everything I told you I'm going to do, he's going to do. Everything I told you that we're going to do, he's going to accomplish. I have a direct line. I'm going to hold his feet to the fire. I'm going to make sure he does it. We're going to do it. It's the Democrat Party all the way. We're going to go for it. We are going to take it, and we are going to give you your hope and chains. I mean, hope and change. I'm sorry. Not hope and chains. Hope and change. See, this is how they do it. This is the whole fucking plan. Pay attention. Learn something and learn how to counteract this bullshit.
And if you'll notice the attacks that are happening between Democrat Party candidates, James, it's like Kamala Harris versus Bernie Sanders. It's Elizabeth Warren versus everyone else. It's Kirsten Gillibrand versus, Cory Booker T, I Am Spartacus. This guy is getting a run right through the middle. And if you actually listen to his policies, it's very red meat progressive stuff. He wants to change the Electoral College. He wants to do, he wants paid family leave, stuff like this. But if you listen to the messaging that surrounds that core of policies, it's all about the blue collar workers. Because here's the thing, the Democrats don't have to win every state. The Democrats only have to carry the states that they did win and then win the states that Donald Trump won off them. And how do you win those states back? You win them back by doing because these people are Democrat by nature, James.
That's right.
They flipped to vote for Donald Trump. So you've just got to bring them home. You've just got to bring them home to the party. This is why I was saying back in 2016 on, whoever would listen to me, that I would be fundamentally concerned in 2020 about a guy who comes out. I'm not looking for the next Barack Obama. I'm looking for the guy who can challenge on blue collar issues and relatability. And what have they done? They've found a local mayor, right?
Yep.
This is the other thing. They say a local mayor would be a negative. How have they turned it to a positive? They now call him Mayor Pete.
Yeah,
he's being described as Mayor Pete. That's a positive, right? Let's listen to a couple more minutes of this, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Made our cities their homes, enriching our community in countless ways. Our cities were also home to companies that excelled on the world stage.
See the economic angle here as well? They touch on refugees, they touch on immigrants, but they also touch on the locals who have been there all along, who built this country with the industries, James, the blue-collar workers, am I right?
Corporations like National Cash Register in Dayton and Studebaker in South Bend. Through much of the 20th century, our cities, like much of the country, saw rapid growth in their middle classes through good work in factories.
Middle class.
And local executives became civic leaders investing in our communities.
businessmen ran for local political jobs, James.
But we all know where the story goes from there. Since the 1960s, we've seen globalization and automation decimate our local economies.
Speaking out against globalization, James. Right. Bombshell, right? Not to us, not on this show. It's not a bombshell on this show. We knew this was coming. We know what they're doing. They're winning people back.
Forces far beyond the control of local workers and leaders closed good factories and sent good-paying jobs out of town.
Donald Trump's platform in 2016. A mirror image of that aspect of Donald Trump's platform in 2016, James.
That's right.
Our cities began to hollow.
Designed specifically for the blue-collar workers in the Rust Belt states that Donald Trump won. Now, if you continue, like I said, in his speech, it's pretty, red meat for progressive stuff. Remember, all he has to do is carry the states that already voted for Clinton with her progressive message. He just has to win back the Rust Belt states and he gets the White House.
Wow, because of policy choices made far away from South Bend or Dayton City Hall.
Washington is the problem, right? Don't trust them. It's Washington's fault. It's up here in the heartland, James. Those decisions that were made down there in D.C., that's the problem here.
In cities like ours, it is easy to focus on what was and what we don't have. It is easy to be held back by our past. It is easy.
Now, that is a clear delineation away from Make America Great Again. So what they're saying is, hey, we did have it good in the past, but we're not going to fix these problems by trying to make America great again. We're going to fix these problems by coming up with new ideas, right? Do you see the difference in language here?
Easy just to say we want to make America great again.
There it is.
But we don't have time to focus on what is behind us or where we should place the blame for our current situations.
See, they're trying to change this. They're trying to change it into that blame game thing, and it's not going to work. But this is what the main thing you have to understand about what we're seeing right here. This is highlighting, absolutely circling and putting an exclamation point and highlighting why Blexit is so goddamn important. Why the walkaway movement is so important. Why the Jexodus is so important. This is highlighting it because it's got to, we can't win 2020 relying on the same states, those blue collar votes staying with us. You only need to look at Pennsylvania to understand that that's true. Donald Trump won the state, and the very next election, we got another Democrat liar that won, that went in as a blue collar guy, went in as an Army veteran, went in on the Democrat principles of saying, hey, I believe in Make America Great Again. We just differ on what that means. And I'm on your side, and I'm for the blue collar, and I'm going to fight for your job. He got in there, and what has he done since? He has voted with Nancy and Chuck. This is the point. You have to understand. That's why the movements of moving people away from the Democrat Party as a whole is much more relevant and important than anything else. And if you understand what they're doing by watching what Pete Buttigieg and Bernie Sanders and Kamala Harris and Pocahontas are all doing, you will understand how we have to win.
Speaking of winning, James, Pelosi announces security assessment for Ilhan Omar. Trump must take down dangerous video. Interesting. Speaker, he must be deplatformed. Remember, James. Remember what the news media has to do to change for 2020. Point number 2, do not cover Trump's personal attacks on Twitter. James sees everything connected in one way, and I see everything connected in a different way from different angles. That's why this show works. Yeah. That's why we have so much fun doing it. Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi announced that she has asked for a security assessment for Ilhan Omar and demanded that Donald Trump take down the dangerous video he posted to attack the freshman congresswoman. Trump posted a video that isolated a remark by Rep. Omar and interspersed it with clips of the 9/11 attacks in progress. This is Nancy Pelosi's statement, James. Following the president's tweet, I spoke with the sergeant at arms to ensure that Capitol Police are conducting a security assessment to safeguard Congresswoman Omar, her family, and her staff. They will continue to monitor and address the threats she faces. The president's words weigh a ton, and his hateful and inflammatory rhetoric creates real danger. Real danger, James. His inflammatory rhetoric, right? James, let me open the kimono a little bit here. Everybody knows that I have a strict policy. I don't talk about other broadcasters, anything like that. So I'm not going to mention any names here. But when you know this stuff, like at a certain level, everybody below the level that you've become accustomed to is really fucking obvious and shitty at these games. And like, we can spot them like this. This is the trend, and this is the tactic, and it's like tactics 101. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. There are too many people who are the aggressor in some kind of confrontation. Now, let's take this as a fundamental. The best way to win a confrontation is by never picking up a gun. Okay, so a lot of people are the aggressors in confrontations, and then when expecting a retort, when expecting some kind of backlash, then try to portray themselves as the victim. This is how the Nazis invaded Poland, by the way. They feigned an attack on themselves. They blamed Poland, and then they had, legitimacy with their own support base to go in and roll over the Polish army with their tanks.
Right.
So Ilhan Omar and Ocasio-Cortez are attack. Rashida Tlaib, attack, which is fine. But there's always this tendency then to, when you get some kind of response, claim that you are the victim, that the other person is the aggressor. Yeah, yep. What did you say that for? That's not fair. You're acting crazy. Stop being so crazy, man. It's just you're obsessed with this. Come on, what the fuck is going on here? Why'd you say that for? And of course, they know why they said it for. But the aim from the outset is to be portrayed as the victim, to garner sympathy, and always be able to say that you're the innocent party here, when it's seldom the case.
I was just minding my own business, calling Donald Trump a Nazi, and suddenly he's proven that he's not. What?
Exactly. I wanted to show this from USA Today. Rep. Ocasio-Cortez, others blast Trump for 9/11 video. I wouldn't have used the term blast in a 9/11 retort, but nonetheless. Video, that was poor editing there from USA Today, coupled with Rep. Omar's comments. Now, normally with that, you would play the specific video you're referring to at the top of the article here, but USA Today does not. What does USA Today play at the top of this article? Well, allow me to show you if it plays. Hopefully it plays. Doesn't look like it's going to play. So the video that they put at the top here was Ilhan Omar apologizing for comments that may have been construed as anti-Semitic, right? Sympathetic figure. There's the blurb underneath. Democratic House leaders denounced fellow Rep. Omar tweet saying anti-Semitism must be called out, confronted, and condemned whenever it is encountered without exception. So she's the victim here. So I actually wanted to see the video that Donald Trump was talking about, to see this hateful rhetoric in play. So I went and looked for it. Let's have a look.
CARE was founded after 9/11.
By the way, that's a lie.
That some people did something.
That's a lie, by the way. CARE was founded in 1994. So that's 7 years before 9/11. So just to say.
Precisely. And I remember, doing some reading in the early 2000s, in 2003, 2004, and reading about the influence that CARE at that stage of the game had over things like Hollywood scripts, James. Did you know that certain Hollywood production houses would send their scripts to organizations like CARE and say, is this offensive in any way? Is there any way that we can clean this up? I forget which, actually, it was one of the, what's that? Tom Clancy. The Sum of All Fears. Yeah. You remember that movie, The Sum of All Fears? In that movie, The Sum of All Fears, a neo-Nazi, it's a great movie, don't get me wrong. A neo-Nazi guy, a rich neo-Nazi, is trying to get Russia and America to have a war with each other. Mm-hmm. Now, in the original of that script, it was actually a jihadist who was trying to get America and Russia to fight each other. But they changed it after talking to groups like CARE to a neo-Nazi instead, because they wouldn't want to be offensive. And there's been video games and stuff where terrorists have been taken out and replaced with, right-wing fascist terrorists, because that's more palatable, I suspect, in the modern age. So let's carry on.
You have no idea right now?
There's another one. Another plane just hit.
Some people did something?
Oh my goodness, there is smoke pouring out the Pentagon.
Some people did something?
It just flew straight into it.
Some people did something. Just on that, Alyssa Milano, James, and then I'll go back to you. Alyssa Milano replying to this tweet, what in the actual fuck? Is this real life? Yes, Alyssa, apparently, yes, planes did fly into the buildings and kill 3,000 people. That was real life you were witnessing there. It wasn't a movie. We cannot normalize this behavior. Isn't it just disgusting? The behavior she is saying that must not be normalized is the showing of that tweet accompanying certain an elected official's words. That must not be normalized. It's not the action of killing innocent civilians that she's talking about. Help me process this, please. Now, this guy, Michael Velasha, sorry. I'm sorry if reality hurts. I lost friends, and many friends lost family members that day. I attended 16 funerals from it. 16. What she said spits on every one of their memories. Quote, some people did something, they murdered people. Now, I would never normally do this, like zero in on people on Twitter. This is not my go. But this guy ran for he was a progressive candidate for the US House in Minnesota CD4. So as far as I'm concerned, you ran for elected office. You are fair game, chap. He wrote in response to this guy who had to attend 16 funerals because of the September 11 attacks, quote, no, you're wrong. She didn't minimize anything or spit on any memory. You, sir, it's like the pompous, you, sir, they even text pompously. You, sir, are spitting on their memory by using it to justify anti-American racism and attacking a sitting member of US Congress. Shame on you. Shame on the guy who had to attend 16 funerals. This guy, apparently, Reed Russell. Yes, we're putting the spotlight on the future candidate for the US House in Minnesota, CD4, Reed Russell. This guy, apparently, you need to be shamed because you attended 16 funerals and didn't appreciate what Ilhan Omar said. Isn't it disgusting? You know, and I'm in favor of this. You know what? Say disgusting things. Be offensive. That doesn't bother me. I'm not offended by this in any way. But what I do get irked by is the self-righteousness and, you know, pointing the finger at somebody who dares tell their story that they had to attend 16 funerals after 9/11. And this guy who wants to run for Congress himself. No, you're you're pushing anti-American racism. Shame on you. Absolutely absurd. So, James, what do you think of the fallout from this? Because Donald Trump tweeting this has people going apoplectic. And I suspect, you know, this is the power of the meme. And can I just tie one more thing and then we'll go back to you. Remember we were talking about Alex Jones. I'm not sure if we talked about it on this show. Definitely talked about it on my show. Alex Jones is being sued for intentionally inflicting emotional harm on the families of the Sandy Hook victims by suggesting that the Sandy Hook shooting was a hoax, right? But what this will do is, because he is being blamed for people apparently harassing these people, right? They say, well, somebody listened to Alex Jones and then they went and, you know, took the law into their own hands and went and harassed these victims. If this lawsuit is successful, one of the things will come out of it will be a redefinition of incitement to violence. So without actually inciting anybody to do anything, without actually saying, you know, you all need to go out there and get this person, you need to attack these people, without any of that, you can be accused in the future of incitement to violence. Now, everybody on the Democrat side of the ledger, after Donald Trump posted this tweet showing the 9/11 footage, Rashida Tlaib, Nancy Pelosi, commentators in the corporate press, James, they say that Donald Trump, this is an incitement to violence against Ilhan Omar. That's why Nancy Pelosi, she didn't say it's an incitement to violence. Nancy Pelosi's far too clever for that. She said, I spoke with the Sergeant at Arms to ensure that Capitol Police are conducting a security assessment to safeguard Congresswoman Omar and her staff. So she doesn't say it's an incitement to violence. She says everything but. Right. And then people fill in the blanks. This is dangerous stuff that people are doing here. This is a redefinition of free speech. Like, where's the First Amendment here? Who's defending the First Amendment here? None of these people are.
That's right.
This is pure political power play at its worst, like at its most based, like debased level.
This is how you manipulate people psychologically, is you do things exactly like this. You say things, but you don't say things. And I'll give you a perfect example in the chat. Our friend over there, Colleen, once again, is talking about how Trump is extraditing Assange. No, that didn't happen. See, you've been completely lied to. Your mind is not your own. Trust me, that didn't happen. Why do I know that that didn't happen? Because he's in a UK prison right now. It didn't happen. Donald Trump didn't extradite him. He's not been extradited. He's not been arrested by U.S. authorities. Nothing has occurred yet. The political people and the news media have spun this kind of lie exactly like Nancy Pelosi just did, so that you believe that Trump has already extradited Assange. It didn't happen. Of course, there was some kind of deal in play politically somewhere, but this stems from an international warrant issued over 9 years ago. That's where this came from. Donald Trump didn't issue that warrant. Donald Trump didn't send the FBI to go pick his ass up. None of this has occurred. Not yet. None of it. Nothing has happened. And yet you're in my chat right now telling everybody that Trump has extradited Assange. Trump had fuck all to do with anything to do with this at this point. So you have to understand that that's how rhetoric, exactly like what Nancy Pelosi just did, and trying to say that she's implying that there is an incitement to violence without saying there's an incitement to violence. It makes connections in your brain say that, oh shit, there must be some real world threats to Ilhan Omar if Nancy Pelosi is calling on the Capitol Police to do threat assessments. See, this is all rhetoric. This is how they fuck with your mind. Understand why we have to point to the facts of cases, of what's actually happening. And I will tell you this, 100% for sure, I remember 9/11. I remember exactly where I was when I found out what was going on with 9/11. And I remember basically being in a daze for days, not knowing what to do. I probably actually should have got fired from my job because I didn't even call in or anything. I forgot I had a job. I forgot my kid's birthday because his birthday was 9/12. This is what happened to a lot of people because of 9/11. My kid is scarred for life from 9/11. These kinds of things happen. This is how devastating that was to our country. We cannot allow people to steer the rhetoric away from the reality of the facts. Terrorists murdered 3,000 people on 9/11, 2001.
I even remember where I was, and I'm not even an American, James. I was at home, and I used to keep the TV on all night. And I woke up during the night because obviously the time difference. And I saw planes flying into buildings, and the news was on. It was on every single channel here in Australia. And I assumed that it was like a late night movie. And so I watched it for like 5 minutes. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I just went back to sleep. And I went to work that morning, and everyone was talking about it. I'm like, I said, you saw that movie too. Was it any good? And they're like, movie? What the hell are you talking about? And somebody put a newspaper in front of me. I was like, Jesus Christ, that actually happened? I thought it was like some kind of late night movie that I was watching. I didn't know that was real. Holy shit. And then, of course, everything changed. The world changed after that. Everything changed. Patriot Act came in. The fucking with, the desert shitholes on the other side of the world, James. Now, everything that we considered normal before 9/11, evaporated in one morning. Gone. The Western world forever changed after that day. Not just in America, but, for all of the satellites as well. I just want to put this up, James. We've changed tack here. I want to give Rashida Tlaib a round of applause. I want to give Rashida Tlaib a tip of the hat for acknowledging, a hard truth, James. Quote, they put us in photos when they want to show our party is diverse. However, when we ask to be at the table or speak up about issues that impact who we are, what we fight for, and why we ran in the first place, we are ignored. To truly honor our diversity is to never silence us. And I would just want to say thank you, Rashida Tlaib, for pointing out to all of your Democratic followers that the Democrat Party's obsession with quote-unquote political diversity and saying how good diversity is all in reality a shallow PR campaign. Well done. Thank you, Rashida Tlaib. Thank you for pointing that out. And the tweet that she's actually quoting, James, from Maheen Ahmed, who I don't know who she is. The attacks on Ilhan Omar and subsequent lack of support from Democratic leadership continues to prove that this system was never meant for us. To that, I have to say, well, if you want to talk brutal truth, it was written by a bunch of white guys. So I guess you're right. Sorry. Remember how you say it was all written by a bunch of white guys and, it's always been racist? Well, okay, if it was never meant for us, why is this a fucking revelation here? This is exactly what you believe, that it was only meant for white men. So what? Oh, well, the attacks on Ilhan Omar show that it was never meant for us. Hang on. Don't you run on the platform that the Constitution proves that it was never meant for you? What the hell am I looking at here? It's like another universe. But James, I think we're ready. It's time for the hammering.
Time for the hammering.
Stop the hammering.
James, Brian Stelter is at it again. Let's rock and roll.
Something that's been in the headlines for days now. Let's talk about where controversies come from. You've probably heard a lot about Congresswoman Ilhan Omar this week, but do you know why?
It's like, where do babies come from? Well, see, where controversies come from, you see, James, is when an alt-right Nazi and somebody at Fox News love each other very much. Well, they get together and then they rub themselves and a controversy pops out.
Why? Do you know how it started? Controversies don't just erupt naturally like a bolt of lightning sparking a fire. No, controversies are created like an arsonist lighting a match.
Why isn't Brian Stelter getting pulled up for his hateful rhetoric here? Arsonists lighting matches? Jesus Christ, don't give anybody ideas, Brian. This might be an incitement to violence.
But too often our news coverage in the papers and on TV and online starts mid-story. We say something like, there's a controversy brewing among these two people, but we leave out the most important part, the lighting of the match. So let's look at how the Omar 9/11 story started.
The lack of self-awareness here is just breathtaking. The amount of matches that Brian Stelter has tried to light over his career, you can't count. You can't count on a million fingers. It's every single episode he's trying to light controversial matches, right?
He's trying to light a match right now.
Right now, exactly. Conservatives pounce. That's what he's trying to do. He actually had the gall to tweet out an article from The Atlantic earlier today, James, which was calling for people to stop taking comments out of context and trying to create outrage around them. And I had to reply. I said, Brian, you do this every single week. You play a 2-second clip and then have a 10-minute conversation about it. Every damn week. I take notice. Brian, I'm watching. I know what you do.
And how it's been framed. Omar gave a speech to the Council on American Islamic Relations last month. Her focus was on the importance of protecting civil liberties. The speech didn't really get picked up at the time.
No.
But then last Monday, the conservative website The Daily Caller, co-founded by Tucker Carlson.
The conservative website. Holy shit, founded by Tucker Carlson. Hold the fucking phone. Do you people know who Tucker Carlson is? He is far from a conservative. He is not a conservative. He's never claimed to be a conservative. In fact, he's literally said, hell, most of my thoughts are actually on the liberal side of the ledger. Are you kidding? These people are calling Tucker Carlson a conservative. If things were normal, if this planet was in its normal orbit instead of the Trump orbit, literally, I would be like, Tucker Carlson has gone off the deep end. He's on some liberal rant because he's not conservative. Some of his platform has nothing to do with conservative. Now, he's fiscally conservative. That is different from being a conservative.
Oh, he's socially liberal all the way. He doesn't care what people do. He's like, people can do whatever the hell they want. He doesn't like conservatives. You know why? Because he was raised by conservatives in country clubs. He talks about how he hated the Republicans because they were country clubs and hated the middle class and the working class. But he doesn't shy away from his upbringing. He knows he was raised in money. But what do children do in that environment? They rebel. That's right. He was a liberal growing up.
That's right.
this evil conservative Nazi bigot.
That's absolutely. Hold on. I got to give a quick shout out to Driving Ivan because he was commenting from the YouTube chat and he says Brian Stelter's about to say dog whistle.
Dog whistle, but only Brian Stelter and the rest of us can hear it. Only the racists can hear it. Apparently,
that's right.
Arguing that all Muslims should not be punished for the actions of a crazy few. So the Daily Caller posted 4 minutes of video to YouTube. Then
I love this argument. The Muslims should not be punished for the actions of a crazy few. Anybody can do this. Under George W. Bush, look at Islamic immigration to the United States post 9/11. It increased tenfold. Tenfold. So after the 9/11 attacks, George W. Bush basically essentially turned around and said, open the floodgates, let them all in. Let them all in. So, we've been persecuted. Really? How the fuck did you get here in the first place? Why? Because that conservative George W. Bush let you in after, some comrades flew planes into the World Trade Center. This doesn't sound like persecution to me.
An Australian man who calls himself a Muslim scholar and is very active on Twitter set the frame for a week.
He's talking about the Imam of Peace, Tawhidi, and he's a good follow on Twitter.
Weeks worth of news coverage. The framing you can see here was that Omar was downplaying 9/11. His tweet took off and it spread to right-wing websites. It was all over these sites by Tuesday. Then on Tuesday night, Sean Hannity brought the video.
There it is. Sean Hannity's responsible.
Yep. But to be fair to Brian, this is something this is why we only cover left-wing sources on this show. He's right. He's right. That's exactly how it works nowadays. That's exactly how it works. That's why we always open the show with like Slate or Salon or Mother Jones, because you can bet your bottom dollar in 3 to 4 weeks' time we'll be reading the exact same narrative in the New York Times or the Washington Post. That's how we discovered Pete Buttigieg, by doing exactly that, by trawling the depths of, the liberal media. That's how we knew Pete Buttigieg was going to end up being pushed. He was going to be the media darling because that's where it all starts.
He covered it on Tuesday night, and then come Wednesday, Fox and Friends was all over it. Brian Kilmeade was questioning Omar's patriotism. This went on and on for days and days, and then on Thursday, this was the cover of the New York Post.
Oh! New York Post, I salute thee. That is absolutely fantastic. Yes. And it's not, I'm not taking a political stance against this, but I just love balls out reporting. Like I love a bold headline, you know what I mean? And a bold front page. That is a bold front page. Here's you something. I love it.
Some people did something. 4 words.
Yeah.
Probably not the best choice of words. It's easy for me to sit here and say I would have chosen different words, right? But the
4 words: make America great again. Oh my God, that's racist.
Point is that this controversy was created. The construction of the frame.
Just 4 words? Is it? He's like, don't everybody calm down. It was only 4 words. It was just 4 words.
Isn't Brian Stelter the one that always says that the president should be responsible for the words he spoke? That you're responsible for the words you choose. You're responsible for the words you use. You're responsible for the rhetoric you spit. Isn't Brian Stelter, like, the whole reason that we love Brian Stelter is because he's so adamant about how important language is that he steps all over the language when he speaks. This is incredible to see him say, it's just bad 4 choice of words. No, it was absolutely disgusting for an American to hear 9/11, a murder of 3,000 people, be referred to as somebody did something. Some people did something. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. There was a thing that happened. Somebody did some people did some shit. Okay.
How about we go right now to Brian Stelter's favorite here. We're gonna twist this. We're gonna do a CNN special right now. Hitler was some people did something. Who cares?
Some guy did something. 4 words. Just 4 words. Just 4 words. Nothing to get excited about. James, I want to put in a nomination. I know this is not my place, and I don't know who does your comment of the week thing, but I want to put up a nomination from G Slice when talking about where these liberal mainstream, where do they originate from? Leighton Salon. He said, "That's where you're wrong. It starts in my crotch." Let's carry on.
Omar downplays 9/11 is a key part of the story. These viral videos and tweets are how we argue about the future of America.
No.
So much of it is
no, Brian. That's how you argue about the future of America. Other people have genuine arguments, and you know what? You call them all white nationalists and Nazis and racists and bigots and homophobes and xenophobes to be ignored, to be deplatformed. Hell, remember our first article today? Even the president himself is to be deplatformed and not spoken about on CNN as the true way forward.
It's based in bad faith.
Bad faith.
These outrage cycles corrupt us. Omar's comment was used as a weapon against her, including...
Do you see the mirroring going on here? These outrage cycles corrupt us from the network of outrage cycles. Now, I toyed with the idea of bringing up like half a dozen videos of Don Lemon and Brian Stelter and Anderson Cooper. Outrage. But I thought, you know what? It's too obvious. It's just everybody knows it. But what do? Take your negative, turn it into a strength, right? Oh, these outrage cycles, like over there at Fox News.
By President Trump, who has pinned this anti-Omar video to the top of his Twitter.
He pinned it to his...
Trump's video is what propelled this story all the way to the nightly news.
Okay.
So now it's being framed as Trump versus Omar.
Okay.
Some Democrats are saying Trump is putting her life in danger.
What? Oh my God, the audacity. The audacity of this man. Gotta love him.
But there's something bigger going on here with this story.
What is it?
It tells us something about the right-wing rage machine and about how news priorities are set.
Yes.
The history of the United States is a tug of war over who belongs and who's equal and who has power. It's the biggest story of all. And yet, those of us in the press oftentimes cover this just in tiny, discrete bits. We put a very small frame on the biggest story. I think we do a much better job when we widen way out. And part of widening out involves
You're working really well on that widening out there, Brian. You're working a really good job there.
Mueller report. You know, maybe we should take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Mueller report.
How was it created in the first place?
Yeah.
Who created it?
How was it created in the first place? Mueller report.
Who stands to benefit from being created and who stands
Nobody
to
watching
lose?
This show.
Who stands to suffer?
Everybody.
These are the big questions that I think we should be asking when there are these eruptions that happen.
Okay. This is all foreplay because what I want you to hear here is the explanation of why this happened. I had to show the foreplay so it makes sense. What Brian's talking about the bigger picture here. Then he brings on his panel of experts. And this gentleman who joins him at the desk is going to give you the explanation of a lifetime as to why Donald Trump tweeted this out. Are you ready?
This evolve over the course of a week?
Well, it's so many stories are like this. First of all, it starts off with kind of alt-right, far-right Twitter, then it goes to the Daily Caller, which boosted up.
First of all, there's very little alt-right, far-right Twitter anymore. They've all been banned. They're all on Gab.
Then it goes to outlets like Fox News, and then it's the entire Republican Party is united around a singular message, which is to defame and destroy the character of Ilhan Omar. And this is like you were saying.
Defame and destroy the character of Ilhan Omar. Remember, she's the victim here. She's been the one that's been calling everybody a Nazi. Donald Trump is a white nationalist. Steve Miller is a white nationalist. Donald Trump is destroying America. He's the problem. He's the criminal. He's the crook. He needs to be indicted. He needs to be thrown in prison. One tweet. Oh, the whole Republican Party is trying to destroy Ilhan Omar.
Hold on, but don't listen. Look at the Chiron. The power of the right-wing rage machine. I would love for us to just do anyone. I would dare any lefty that ever potential. I can't even speak anymore, man. I needed a drink. Sorry. I dare any lefty on any network, Twitter, anywhere. You put together a string of the right-wing rage machine on Twitter, and we'll do the same with the left. And we'll see who comes up with some real things. Like all of the people out there, Donald Trump's your president. That's all that happened. Donald Trump got elected president. You burned the city of Portland. What did they do? Oh yeah, they destroyed downtown L.A. at parts. I mean, these people, they're talking about the power of the right-wing rage machine when the left has been in full outrage. And in fact, Boogie, I think, on your show, you put out like an entire segment of your show highlighting some of the news agencies were actually saying how their what was it exactly? You would say it best, but their outlook on what happened with Donald Trump affected their judgment in a negative way, so that they've been on the wrong side of this for the last 2.5 years. What was the exact thing that they did?
No, that was on this show. That was Matt Taibbi from Rolling Stone.
There you go.
You know, we were so emotionally affected by Donald Trump winning the 2016 election that it clouded our judgment with the Russia investigation. So we thought he must be guilty because that's the only way that he could win.
Right.
And so, you know, we have to have a mea culpa moment. That was Matt, and he was one of the biggest pushers of the Russia collusion story, was Matt Taibbi.
Yeah.
Congratulations to him. It's pretty hard to acknowledge that kind of thing.
I agree.
This long 50 years.
Wait, you really need to hear this in its totality. I'm not going to comment, but I want you really need to hear this explanation, and this is going to end the hammering, and I won't even have to add anything to this. You're going to absolutely love this.
You know, outlets like Fox News, and then it's the entire Republican Party is united around a singular message, which is to, you know, defame and destroy the character of Ilhan Omar. And this is, like you were saying, it's part of this long 50-year strategy that began with the Southern strategy in the Republican Party to divide white voters from voters of color. And this is what we're seeing with the right-wing ideology.
Okay, I couldn't help myself. So he's linking. Wait. He's linking Donald Trump tweeting this tweet about Ilhan Omar to the Southern strategy, which has been proven to be a myth, by the way. Right. But he's linking it to the Southern strategy. Wait till you see what he links to the Southern strategy.
Political war machine is that they target Ilhan Omar because they want leaders like her and leaders like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. They want to show to their white viewers that those leaders don't have anything in common with white voters, because what would happen? Well, the owners of these outlets, Rupert Murdoch for Fox News and the New York Post, Robert Mercer for Breitbart, they're billionaires. At the end of the day, it's kind of a divide and conquer strategy to make sure that no one ever comes together. The American people, the voters, don't come together to tax billionaires like them and provide health care for all.
Yes.
I told you, it's all related to the fucking money.
Okay, so did you follow that? The whole reason that Donald Trump tweeted out this Ilhan Omar thing is because it starts in the alt-right Twitter sphere, James. It gets picked up by the Daily Caller. It then gets picked up by Donald Trump. It then gets picked up by the whole Republican Party. It's then pushed by white billionaires like Fox News, Rupert Murdoch, and the Mercer family who run Breitbart. Why? Because it's part of the 50-year plan that comes from the Southern strategy to divide people, to make leaders like Omar and Ocasio-Cortez unrelatable to white people. Because why? So you don't tax billionaires because they don't want free healthcare. Now, I have to, just before we end the hammering, I know it's a mouthful. I know it's a long, logical bow to draw, but even to his credit, even Brian Stelter is taken aback with this.
to make sure that no one ever comes together, the American people, the voters, don't come together to tax billionaires like them and provide health care for all. So this is a 50-year strategy.
You're telling a very big story here about a specific event that happened this week.
You're telling a very big story here. Could you just imagine Brian after the show in the green room, like walking up to this guy and slapping him on the forehead and saying, "What the hell was that? I've asked you on here to talk about one tweet."
I want to know who books Brian Stelter's
billionaires getting taxed because they don't want health care. What the fuck are you talking about?
What do you think Brian Stelter said to his producer? Where the fuck did you find this guy? Can we get anybody with some intelligence? What the fuck was that?
And remember, ladies and gentlemen, the whole point of this segment was, James, audience, combating the outrage cycle of the corporate press. Remember, in order to combat the outrage cycle of the corporate press, you need to understand the real problem. The real problem is Donald Trump is retweeting alt-right Nazis, which is then picked up by Fox News, which is run by white billionaires like Rupert Murdoch, which is extending from the Southern strategy 50 years ago in order to make people like Ilhan Omar distasteful to white people because those billionaires do not want to be taxed and provide everybody free healthcare. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the outrage cycle, and that's your hammering.
Stop the hammering.
Thanks for being here, everybody. That's about all the time we got for you. What a spectacular hammering. I'm still laughing. That was amazing. If that doesn't get you fired up to go watch your Game of Thrones, whatever the hell's going on, I don't know if it's a premiere, the ending, the whatevers, the what season they're in. I don't watch it. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm one of those people that just eats beat. Man, I can't even speak today. I'm just one of those people that eats, breathes, and sleeps politics, and I could give a shit less about Game of Thrones. I know I am a Nazi for doing that. I love you. If you want to follow Boogie Bumper, you can follow him at Boogie Bumper. If you want to follow me, you can follow me at Real Person, PLTCS. If you want to follow us, you can follow us at TAV Show, and you can find all of our prior episodes on TAVshow.com. Take care, everybody. Aloha.
Victory is not winning for our party. Victory is winning for our country. This year, America will recognize two important anniversaries that show us the majesty of America's mission and the power of American pride. In June, we mark 75 years since the start of what General Dwight D. Eisenhower called the Great Crusade, the Allied liberation of Europe in World War II. On D-Day, June 6, 1944, 15,000 young American men jumped from the sky and 60,000 more stormed in from the sea to save our civilization from tyranny. Here with us tonight are three of those incredible heroes. Private First Class Joseph Riley, Staff Sergeant Irving Locker, and Sergeant Herman Zaitchik. Please.